Number 8. The Plague Doctor. The year is 1348. Europe is basically one giant biohazard zone. People are dying so fast that funeral processions look like morning traffic. And in the middle of all this chaos appears the figure we now recognize from every Gothic Halloween costume. The Plague Doctor. The job was simple: walk through infected neighborhoods, examine the sick, and try not to die. Their uniform was a full-body leather suit topped with a long beak mask stuffed with herbs, spices, and probably misplaced optimism. They believed the scent of lavender and mint would purify the air, which, spoiler, it didn't. They carried a wooden cane to poke corpses, check pulses, and keep distance from patients. But let's be real, if your patient's already coughing blood, social distancing won't help much. The pay was actually high, which was a nice touch for a job where the retirement plan was immediate burial. Some doctors even wrote diaries, describing streets filled with carts of bodies, dogs feasting on corpses, and priests refusing last rites because everyone was too contagious. So yeah, next time your boss schedules a team building activity, just remember, at least it's not the 14th century. Number 7. The Tosher. Now we jump to Victorian London, the birthplace of industrial progress and, coincidentally, the world's most disgusting job. Toshers were sewer scavengers. They climbed into the labyrinth of London's underground tunnels armed with only a lantern and a rusty hook, searching for lost coins, jewelry, or anything shiny that had accidentally fallen into the filth. Their office was a stew of human waste, dead rats, and mysterious floating objects you definitely don't want to identify. The danger wasn't just the smell. Sudden floods could drown you in seconds. Toxic gases could knock you out before you even screamed. And rats, of course, treated you like a buffet. Still, some made surprisingly good money, up to £1 a night if they were lucky. That's basically influencer money. Except your brand deal was with cholera. The city eventually banned the job, but by then, thousands had already spent their lives literally swimming through crap. So, next time you complain about your office being toxic, remember, some people worked inside the literal definition of that word. Number 6. The Executioner. Executioners had one of the most paradoxical jobs in history. Feared, needed, and completely hated. They were responsible for beheadings, hangings, burnings, and pretty much every creative form of justice that existed before electricity. It sounds like a power trip, but it wasn't. Executioners were social outcasts. People avoided them at markets. Their children couldn't marry normal citizens. They even had to live outside city walls. Basically, history's first canceled professionals. And it wasn't easy work. A single bad swing of the axe could turn a clean execution into a gruesome public disaster. There are stories of executioners needing 5 or 6 strikes to finish a job while the crowd screamed in horror. One executioner even apologized mid-swing. Despite the stigma, they were often paid in cash and booze. A few got famous, like Jack Ketch, England's most infamous hangman. Though fame in that line of work isn't exactly a flex. If there was a medieval LinkedIn, their skill section would just say, strong arms. Bad reputation. Number 5. The Leech Collector. Long before antibiotics, medicine was basically witchcraft with better handwriting. Doctors believed sickness came from imbalanced humors, and the cure was simple: drain your blood. Enter the Leech Collectors, mostly poor women who waded barefoot into swamps and ponds to gather medicinal leeches. These slimy creatures would latch onto their legs and start sucking blood. When they'd had enough, the collectors would pull them off and drop them into jars for sale. It was dangerous. Leeches carry bacteria, infections were common, and many collectors fainted from blood loss. They were paid by the jar, so you couldn't even take a break without losing income. It was the original gig economy, but with more worms. By the 1800s, the demand for leeches was so high that collectors nearly wiped them out. One doctor reportedly used over 2,000 on a single patient. So if you ever think modern medicine is too expensive, just remember, it used to cost your dignity and your blood. Number 4. The Powder Monkey. On 18th century warships, cannons ruled the ocean, but someone had to carry the gunpowder. That someone was usually a child, boys as young as 10, called powder monkeys. During battles, they sprinted through smoke and chaos carrying bags of gunpowder from the ship's hold to the cannons. One spark, one cannon misfire, and boom! Instant fireworks. They wore no armor, barely had shoes, and often lost their hearing from the constant blasts. But they were considered vital members of the crew. Small, fast, and easy to replace. A captain once wrote that powder monkeys were as brave as lions and as disposable as candles. That about sums it up. They were promised adventure, glory, and a steady meal. What they got was trauma, deafness, and lifelong fear of loud noises. Imagine sending your kid to sea today for minimum wage. Actually, don't. Someone in the comments will say, it builds character. Number 3. The Groom of the Stool. Royal jobs were supposed to be glamorous, but not this one. During the reign of Henry VIII, the Groom of the Stool had the most intimate duty in England, assisting the king during his bathroom visits. He managed the royal toilet, fetched towels, and even documented the king's bowel movements in official records. Yes, poop reports were part of the National Archives. It sounds humiliating, but weirdly, it was considered an honor. The groom had daily access to the king, which meant influence, gossip, and occasionally political power. Some even became noblemen. But still, it's hard to brag about your promotion when it involves handling royal business. If there's a lesson here, it's that proximity to power doesn't always smell good. Number 2. The Radioactive Painter. In the early 1900s, luminous watches were the height of innovation. The numbers glowed in the dark thanks to radium paint, a magical, mysterious substance that companies claimed was perfectly safe. Enter the Radium Girls. Dozens of young women were hired to paint watch dials, told to sharpen their brushes with their lips for precision. Every lick meant swallowing tiny amounts of radioactive material. They laughed when their teeth glowed at night. Management said it was healthy energy. Spoiler, it was cancer. Their bones started to crumble. Jaws literally disintegrated, a condition now known as radium jaw. When they tried to sue, companies said they were lying or immoral, but the women persisted, and their case changed US labor laws forever. So yes, they died young, but their courage saved millions of workers afterward. Their story is horrifying and kind of heroic. Still, if your job description ever includes mild radiation exposure, maybe it's time to find a new LinkedIn alert. Number 1. The Whaler. Whaling in the 1700s was the oil industry before oil. Men sailed across freezing oceans to hunt 80-ton giants armed with ropes, harpoons, and questionable confidence. Once they speared a whale, it could drag the ship for hours, sometimes days. The crew had to stay balanced on slippery decks coated in blood and blubber. If the whale capsized the boat, you drowned or froze. If you survived, congratulations! Time to cut the whale open and boil its fat for months in giant cauldrons. The smell was unbearable, the pay was barely worth it, and the conditions? Imagine working in a horror movie directed by Poseidon. One sailor wrote, "We are the dirtiest, coldest, hungriest men on Earth." Another said simply, "The ocean hates us." And yet, people kept doing it, all for the sake of lamp oil and corset grease. So yeah, when you complain about office burnout, just remember, at least your coworkers aren't decomposing whales. Alright, that's enough for now. If you like this and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back soon. Real soon.